Welcome to the program. My name is Marty Schenkman, and we're joined by a great group of speakers on really critical topics for these incredibly terrifying and unusual times that we're going through. Our goal for this webinar is to try to help you as practitioners deal with as many of the issues as we can that we're all facing right now. We have a very full table. We're never going to get through all the material. We're definitely going to go on a little longer than the 1 hour that we've allotted for this. If you can't stay on for the extra time, a recording of the webinar will be posted to my website, schenkmanlaw.com/webinars. I assume Interactive Legal will post it to theirs, and when Peak speaks, they can mention if they will post it to theirs. We've already had such a robust discussion about remote notarization and execution with the panelists that we may do a follow-up webinar specifically on using technology during this difficult time, remote working and remote signatures and notarizations and other topics. Before we get going, we have 3 very quick comments from sponsors, 2 sponsors and 1 charity. Vanessa?
Thank you, Marty. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, to those of you like me who are not on the East Coast. I'm Vanessa Kanega. I am the President and Director of Content Development for Interactive Legal. And I welcome all of you to this webinar, and would just like to say on behalf of myself and all of us at Interactive Legal that we hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and staying strong during this time. You all provide such a critical service to your clients generally, and they need you now more than ever. So our priority is being here as a resource to support you through our drafting systems, of course, and by connecting you with resources like this webinar, which we will post on our website. So please continue to visit our site and including our events page where we list upcoming webinars, and be on the lookout for emails from us. And if you're not yet an Interactive Legal subscriber and you're interested in our drafting systems, we're here for you too. Our operations are going on just as usual. So visit our website and contact us via the email that is appearing on your screen now. And thank you so much to our panelists today for presenting this valuable information and for allowing us to be a part of it.
Just a quick comment. I've used Interactive Legal for drafting for many, many years. And when I work remotely, which I've done also for many, many years, so working remotely is nothing new for us. We've done it for a long time. I use GoToMyPC, which is a product that we're going to talk to you about in case you're not familiar with it. And we have both a tech consultant and somebody from LogMeIn that owns GoToMyPC. And I use that to get to my office computer where I work and use Interactive Legal. So we'll talk more about that. Peak Trust Company, our second sponsor.
Hi, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. My name is Nicole King. I'm a trust officer here with Peak Trust Company. We're pleased and honored to be able to sponsor today's presentation. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Peak Trust. We have offices in both Alaska and Nevada. We are a full-service trust company. We offer flexible and customized administrative services for all types of trust. As we navigate these uncharted waters, we are here to answer your questions, so please don't hesitate to contact myself or any member of our team. And as Marty had mentioned, a recording of this webinar will be posted on our website for future, for you to go back to and review if you haven't had a chance to review the whole thing. So our website is www.peaktrust.com. And I'll turn it back over to you, Marty.
So quick comment about Peak. In 2012, I'm sure most of you on this call remember the deluge of planning that occurred in 2012. Prior to the last portion of 2012, our custom, and I think most of our customs and standards of practice, was to have wet signatures, actual signatures on trust documents. In 2012, there was simply no way that we could even FedEx documents back and forth and get them signed in time. And what began to happen, and we began doing it with Peak in 2012, was sending PDFs of signed signature pages back and forth. And that quickly became a standard of practice. And Jonathan will hopefully comment as we get to it, but we both, Jonathan and I, have talked about it. We both believe that there's going to be some major shifts in standards of practice resulting from the difficult times we're going through now. I think working remotely is going to become much more common. using some of the products that we're going to talk about, and perhaps remote notarization and execution of documents will get the legislation passed to facilitate that as well. So hopefully we'll see changes in standards as well. Jamie, are you on?
I am. Hi, Marty.
Hi. Before you start,
Okay.
my practice has been for some time that, and especially since we don't charge for the webinars, to try to do a good deed out of every webinar and promote a charity, a good cause. And certainly with these trying times, I think one of the ways I find helpful to get through difficult times is, and we all have them now. I mean, I've had them with personal and family health issues for quite some time. Do good, help somebody else. It's a great way to help you get through a tough time. Jamie?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Marty. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on the call and all you do to continue supporting the ACS. And, the topic today is obviously an incredibly important one. And in this new world that we're all adapting to, now is really a more critical time than ever to ensure that we're still delivering on our American Cancer Society mission to attack cancer from every angle. We know that the patients we serve are really of the most vulnerable population right now. And so our efforts are continuing every day through advocacy, research, education, and patient service programs. I encourage you to review the slide we've included here or visit our website at cancer.org to learn more about the work that we're doing. And just a note that if you or a loved one is in need of support dealing with a cancer diagnosis right now, we are still available 24/7 to anybody who needs our help by calling 1-800-227-2345. And then just a real quick plug to encourage each of you to join our American Cancer Society National Professional Advisor Network for allied professionals by visiting cancer.org/NPAN if you're not already a member. The slide you're seeing now shares the benefits, tools, and resources available to our members. Thank you for your time today.
So, plug for the American Society. I think I hold having encourage most people to sign up for NPAN, most professionals of any that's volunteered for American Cancer Society. I encourage all of you on the call to sign up. We had close to about 1,400 registrants for this webinar, and if all 1,400 of you sign up, it'll make a big impact. You're not going to get put on mailing lists. You're not going to get solicited. You'll get some good free information, but just simply being a part of NPAN is a great way to show your support and keep a wonderful cause at the top of your mind. We're going to get started and we're going to jump in. So the first topic that we want to talk about, and we're going to go through it quickly because there's so many more important topics, and I want to save time for the two very brilliant techies that we have on the phone, is what do estate planners do with the current times that we're in. So we're all familiar. I mean, you can't not know what's going on with the stock market, with coronavirus. We're not going to really talk about it. Everybody knows that the difficult times we're all going through and the terrifying times perhaps yet to come. How can we as estate planners operate our practices through these trying times? We need to deal with our practice issues as well. And secondly, what can we do to best help our clients? Those are going to be the focus of what we do. So the first topic I want to talk about is what do we do to communicate to our clients? We need to communicate to our clients. I suspect most of you, like I, have been inundated your inboxes with emails. The typical email that I've seen says, gee, these are really trying times, stay safe, we're here to help. Not really much, if any, relevant information. I don't love emails like that. I like giving relevant information. How much you choose to give may vary depending on how you view your firm and how you like to communicate. What we are going to do is I'm going to have a mailing done to my clients, an email blast. I use MailChimp, and I'm going to have Baron comment very quickly about this. And I'm going to send an email blast out using something based off the sample letter that we're going to give you in a minute. Baron, do you want to comment just quickly about how firms, especially smaller practices, can use email to communicate with their clients?
Well, there's not a lot of insightful thing to say about that, other than, you need to have a database. Unfortunately, a lot of law firms don't have a central database of all their clients' email addresses and names. And that's one of those things that maybe you didn't think about before, but when you need to reach out and touch all of your clients at once, you want to think about that going forward anyway. Case management, matter management programs provide that. Outlook could provide that. But unfortunately, most law firms, in my experience, don't have a centralized contact database and would have no way to punch out a broadcast email to their client base. And that's something to think about. We'll talk about that later in this seminar about what should be on your radar about this kind of a thing, because you know, if you define a business disaster is defined as anything that interrupts the normal flow of business, and the severity is a function of how long you're impaired and the severity of the impairment. So for many law firms, this is a catastrophic business disaster. It is definitely interrupting the way we do business, and we don't have any idea how long it's going to be. And for some, the severity of the impairment is really significant. Unfortunately, I'm sure you've heard this statistic: 25% of businesses don't reopen after a major disaster. So this is part of having, for example, you may not have thought of that before, but having a central contact database is part of your disaster recovery plan. You might have to reach out and touch everybody at once, and that should be one of the items in your checklist. And unfortunately, a lot of people haven't realized that until now.
We have all our contacts in Outlook, and we use a program called, I'm blanking on the name. I think it's, Tom, come in and let me know the program. I'll get you the name. It's a simple program that helps us extract all the relevant data from Outlook and punch it into MailChimp, and we're able to update MailChimp periodically from Outlook, and use that for our database mailing. So some of the questions to consider: what do you want to put into a communication, and what should you not put into a communication? So one of the communications I received from a financial firm said something along the lines of what's on top of slide 11. It kind of likened the fear of the pandemic to the fear being as contagious as the pandemic, and it spoke about a sense of financial security. I personally was bothered by this because my wife has multiple sclerosis. She's over 60. The meds she takes modulate but really suppress her immune system. So she's an incredibly high risk, and we've been largely self-quarantining for weeks, long before they were even talking about it in a significant way, just out of fear and concern for the risk to her. So for someone to tell me that fear is equally contagious as the pandemic and the coronavirus is something that didn't sit well with me. And, you know, financial security is important, but, you know, my God, the first and most important thing is physical health and safety. So this was something that I'm not sure you want to say. I think you need to be mindful and careful of what you say. I think you need to use sensitivity and compassion in any communication. I think the real point is, how are you there to help your clients? What can you do? And everyone on this call can help. Now, here's something, and I'm not saying it's a marvel or an optimal presentation, but I'll just tell you some of what I have in here quickly, and the slides are here. We obviously, we're concerned for our staff, we're concerned for our clients. Health is the first and only priority, really, major priority for all of us. So there are things, though, that we can do that clients may need to address in respect to tax, legal, financial, and other implications, depending on what your role and your discipline is. Living wills, we're going to talk about them. Clients should have current living wills, health proxies, HIPAA releases, and so on. There's a number of very significant issues with many of the living will, health proxy, HIPAA release forms, and we're going to talk about that in more detail, but that's something that we can do to affirmatively help people address some of the issues today. Staff is going to be working remotely for most of us. Many of you are probably working from home right now listening to this web conference. What does that mean, and how do clients communicate with you? Email, most of us are all cloud-based with email, and I'll let Baron comment on that in a few minutes, so that we still can retrieve and receive all our emails, although some of the response emails that I've gotten from some of our colleagues make me wonder if that's really correct. We need to talk about the impact of the market on retirement plans, spending, financial models, business succession plans. We can help clients with all of this. So there's a lot of positive things that we can do. The final thing, and we have a lot of interesting stuff on taxes, and Jonathan and I are going to do another webinar, I think, on April 14th on just planning for what might come in a deep dive and using spats and slats and other techniques to assure that clients can make irrevocable gifts, use exemption, and still preserve access to the trust. You know, we can do great planning for people. In many ways, this is a uniquely wonderful opportunity to plan, but we have to be careful. Jonathan, do you want to comment on your view of the likelihood of anyone doing planning now, even though it's the ideal time? Jonathan?
Hi, Marty. Yes, I would like to comment. Thank you.
Okay.
Back in the late 1980s, a couple of terrible things happened, really. The price of oil dropped tremendously, as it has recently, and that hurts virtually all markets. In addition, we had the biggest downturn in one day, I mean, as a percentage in 1987, even bigger than we had a couple of days ago as a percentage. A couple of days ago, it was the largest point drop, but as a percentage, it was in 1987. And even though, and the value of everything went down, it wasn't just stocks, but real estate, closely held businesses, everything you can imagine. And I would go to people and say, this is the ideal time to do the planning. But people were concerned about themselves. I mean, many of you on the phone and many of your clients have seen a 30% drop in your net worth. And that's going to be terribly unsettling. And to go to a client and say, well, now you want to give those assets away because we can save estate tax for your children and grandchildren, it may not sit well. As Marty said, on April 14, we're going to do a webinar in which we're going to present ideas that will allow your client to make gifts, to take advantage of the downturn, take advantage of what may be a very temporary large exemption, because one of the things that I think may happen out of the current crisis that we're going through is that taxes may increase dramatically. Because the government can't pay for it by itself, there's going to be tremendous additional debt, and somebody is going to have additional taxes, and that may be people in the estate tax arena. So you're going to want to tune in on that. But I think right now, just going to a client and say, oh my gosh, your portfolio is down 30, 40%, now's the time to give it away. I don't think your clients are going to be pleased. And I went through that in the 1980s, and I got a very, very cold reception.
So the take-home point is we can do an awful lot, everyone on this call, to help clients plan now. Low interest rates, low values, risk of change from 2020 election, really a perfect opportunity to plan. Keep Jonathan's comments in mind, because I don't think that's the first thing anybody wants to hear. We have a lot of slides at the end of this slide deck about planning in this environment and grants and how to use them, what to do, and so on. We're probably not going to get to all of it, and we will cover all that stuff in the April 14th program. Here's a short email that I received from a law firm, and these folks are well known. You probably all know the firm and the practitioners, that I thought was a fairly good email, short to the point, giving some factual information about tax changes and saying how they're going to communicate and help work with clients so that clients know what's going on. Here's another email on slide 16 that I got from somebody that I thought kind of odd, because if they're really accessing their email, and I'm not sure why anybody can't and wouldn't, because I have email on my smartphone and laptop, and I can access it anywhere through Outlook and so on. I was a little surprised to get this kind of auto response from somebody, and it actually made me wonder, are they really, do they really have their tech together to be able to work in this environment? I just want to point out quickly, and Tom Rogerson brought this to my attention, about the importance of encouraging families to continue to connect and communicate during this difficult time. It's not going to be the usual family gathering because of the social distancing, but there's ways we can encourage families, and there's a webinar on family meetings and legacy plannings that will give you some ideas. I think a lot of our clients may appreciate that. Many of our family clients with family businesses in particular may be able to use some of this difficult time now to help build family connections rather than letting them fray further with the social distancing. So just to bring you up to where we are, a quick recap. We've tried to talk about communication to clients and some of the ways to do it. Before we go on to the tech section, which I think is incredibly important, Baron, any other comments, or Paul from LogMeIn, any other comments on what clients, practitioners can do to communicate with clients?
I don't have anything else to add except what's coming up in the subsequent slides.
Okay, so let's get to it. So remote access is absolutely critical. If you cannot work in your office, and if where you are geographically located, you can work in your office, that may not last long. Bergen County, New Jersey, where I'm located, has basically asked businesses to close. There's a very limited exception for attorneys, but businesses are closed. New York is talking about possible self-quarantining and restrictions as well, and I'm sure that's happened in other places, and it will continue to happen until the virus is under control. Why don't I first turn this over to Baron? Why don't you lead the charge on remote access, and then I'll ask Paul to comment after you. And just by way of some background for all of you on the call, Baron Henley is with Affinity Consulting. He's a brilliant IT consultant. I have worked with Baron for several years. I actually speak to Baron approximately quarterly just to pick his brain to see what else we can do, because I try to stay ahead of the tech curve because it has absolutely transformed my practice. And frankly, from a tech perspective, much of what needs to be done to work remotely and work in this difficult environment we're in from a technological perspective, because honestly, Jonathan preaching in, I think it was 2011 at Heckerling about the office of the future, I drank the Kool-Aid and jumped on that bandwagon, and have worked with great people like Baron to get there. And much of the software that I use has been from a product called GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, which is the software we're using for this program now, and GoToMyPC, which is how I remote access. And Paul from LogMeIn, which is the company that owns all those great products, is going to speak in a few minutes. Baron, why don't I turn it over to you, and I can advance the slides or not as you request.
Okay, I'll go fast. So we always talk about practice portability. It's part of your disaster avoidance and recovery plan. And obviously, I can mitigate the severity of an interruption if I can practice from wherever. So the first piece of that is the divorcing yourself from the reliance upon analog or paper files. I get it, estate and trust practices require paper. That doesn't mean that all of your records don't have to be or could be electronic. Even, you execute original estate planning documents, obviously they could be scanned and made available electronically. Lots and lots of law firms have both a paper filing system and electronic filing system, and they still rely on the paper one. As long as you have two filing systems, you're just doubling your work. Ultimately, you don't get any benefit from going electronic until and unless you start relying upon the electronic and don't keep every shred of paper. So that's a whole separate seminar that would take at least an hour. But you got to look at architecturally, how am I running? How am I set up from a file management perspective? If you go electronic, then you really can. You don't keep having to go back to the office because that's where all the information is. So building a complete electronic file and learning to rely on it is a big part of this. Cloud-based document management systems, like the way Marty remotes into his computers in his office, so he could be wherever. And as long as he's got a computer or a tablet connected to the internet, he can use GoToMyPC and take over computers that are still back in his office. Of course, if you have cloud-based systems like my business does, then I don't need to take over another computer. I can access directly our systems from any device connected to the internet, Windows or Mac, tablet, phone, whatever. There's some great options for that now. And a lot of people have resisted that and resisted it, or they got talked into servers because their IT people only sell servers and don't have any cloud offerings. And when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So they tell everybody, you got to have servers, and you got to, basically they're tethering you back to your office. So there's lots of options for that if you want to advance. The slides, sorry.
Let me interject
some,
a quick comment.
yeah,
Let me interject a quick comment. We're basically cloud-based. We've kept certain things on our server because of concerns that we've had in a bad recent experience when we tried to make the leap to the cloud fully, with the ability to get the document file folder structure that we have on our server replicated in the cloud. I have no doubt that as soon as I'm comfortable with that, and I don't think that's far off, we'll be solely, fully, totally cloud-based. One of the products which is mentioned here that we have for our document management system in the cloud is NetDocs, and I'll let Baron comment on that. So I think one of the things we all need to do right now, if you're going to get locked out of your office and you're going to be prevented from going to your office for some period of time, what do you do if you still have paper files? We really don't have paper files. If you do, you have to think through how you're going to manage that, because you need to be able to access documents. A simple approach real quick is get everything scanned that's not yet been scanned if you're still living in a paper environment, so you can work, whether it's go to my PC back to your office or in a cloud-based environment like NetDocs. Aaron?
yeah. So NetDocuments is just, I'm not going to go through an exhaustive list of all the products that you could look at, but NetDocuments has been an online web-based document and email management system. They kind of pioneered that whole idea when nobody would even think to go to the internet. They were already there. So all the other products are now trying to catch up, and I don't know if they're ever going to be caught. But it is an easy way to have access to every single document, email, and attachment to email, and anything you've ever scanned from anywhere, if you don't have that capability right now. And then there's web-based matter management and full accounting systems like Clio, Cosmolex, ActionStep, and Centerbase. The only difference there, Clio does not have full accounting. You have to link to QuickBooks or Xero to get the full accounting. But Cosmolex, ActionStep, and Centerbase, it's all complete case management, matter management, and full accounting. So trust accounting and billing and GL and accounts payable, accounts receivable, the whole ball of wax, all in one thing, which you can access from anywhere. And they all have some kind of document email management capability built in, so you can link documents and emails and journalize phone calls, and any bit of information that's related to a case you can put into that case, accessible by anybody else connected to your system via the web. Client portals are coming. All the case management programs, by the way, have a way of sharing documents with your clients electronically without using email. So you can give people a login and a password. They can come to your website, click on a link, and they would be able to get whatever you'd shared with them. And you can revoke their access whenever you want. If you don't have something like that, then there are really good services such as ShareFile from Citrix, which basically you can set up portals for anybody you want. And then depending on the bundle you get with ShareFile, you get ancillary services like, for example, email encryption, which every lawyer needs. Document assembly systems so that people aren't, a lot of, you know, the whole generation.
Baron?
Yeah.
Baron,
Yeah.
Let me interject. We use ShareFile in our office. One of the things we do in ShareFile is we create a separate, call it a safe deposit box, a private cloud-based vault for every single client. And PDFs of all critical signed documents are stored in that vault for every client. Each client gets an email so they can set whatever password they want and share it with anyone they want. And there's a phone app. So if a client is rushed on an emergency basis to a hospital, they can download from their smartphone their health proxy, their living will, any document they want. If a client wants to share with their financial advisor documents, a trust document we did, all they have to do is share the link to the share file and give the password to that person. They can access everything. We get called infrequently to provide documents to people because it's all in ShareFile. And in a remote environment and in a difficult environment where clients may need something on an urgent basis, like what we're living in now, phenomenal tool. Aaron?
Yeah, agreed. ShareFile is honestly one of my favorite services. We use it ourselves. It is easy to use. It does, and they have a free trial, so you can go to their website and check it out and take it for a test drive. And then depending on what you want, you can step up and get more services included. And another thing I like about ShareFile is they will brand it for you, so that like they'll take your logo and your colors and they'll customize your ShareFile account to look like your website. So if you link somebody off your website to your ShareFile account, it's not likely they would even know they left your website because it looks the same. And that's a really cool ancillary service. Document assembly systems, there are a whole generation of lawyers, my age and older, 50 plus, who are somewhat or completely reliant upon support staff to help them. If I get locked out of my office, it's not so easy to coordinate with support staff to get documents done. So if you've got a document assembly platform, even if you're a terrible typist and you don't consider yourself to be tech savvy, you can still punch out highly evolved, perfectly formatted documents without administrative help. And I look at that also as something that everybody should be looking at. I know a lot of people are completely reliant or partially reliant on staff, and I'm not saying there's something inherently wrong with that, but it's liberating if you can be free of that, and it's part of your disaster recovery plan, because then you're self-reliant when it comes to producing work product. Voice over IP phone systems, another one of those things that we have. So my phone system is anywhere. My laptop has an internet connection anywhere in the world. All I need is a wireless headset that plugs in via USB, and I can receive direct calls on my direct dial number. I can see who's on the line. I can transfer calls. People can transfer calls to me, and nobody knows, right? Because it's a hosted voice over IP system. So the only thing we have in our office is an internet connection and a headset. All the blinky boxes and servers and expensive crap you used to have to buy for voice over IP, don't need to buy that anymore. That's all in the provider's facility, wherever that happens to be connected to the internet, and that makes it completely portable for the practitioner. Wherever you are, that's where your phone system is. And if your office is shut down, nobody would know. If our office was completely shut down, if it burned to the ground, our phones would ring, everybody would get calls, everything's fine. And those typically have a flat fee per month, unlimited calling. So it's really often way cheaper than what people are used to. Hosted applications of any type, Microsoft Office. If you have Outlook, then you need Exchange if you want full functionality. Can that run on a server in your office? Yeah, or you could get it for $5 per user per month as part of Office 365 in a hosted system. Great deal. If you want to be able to go to your clients and produce documents, a lot of people don't know this. Hewlett Packard has OfficeJet 250. That's a multifunction machine that's portable. You can print, scan, and copy with that little thing, and it'll run on batteries. You can put it in a bag. There's other portable printers like the Pixma IP100. HP, of course, makes portable printers as well. And then there's also portable scanners like the ScanSnap S1300i. If you want to be able to be a mobile estate planning office and go to wherever your clients are, there's definitely, aside from laptops, of course, there's additional ancillary equipment you would need, and all that stuff's available on Amazon for surprisingly low prices. Executing documents without face-to-face, at least on things like all the administrative things, engagement agreements and such. My favorite service is Right Signature, having tried most of them, and they all have free trials, so you can test drive it. So not only can you execute documents, but your clients can execute documents, and they can do that from a phone, a tablet, or a computer. And my experience is, even people who are not tech savvy at all, they can still do this. And if you haven't ever tried them, by all means do so.
Let me
Finally,
interject a quick comment, and then I want to turn it over to Paul. We have an electronic signature. I'm blanking on which software we use. It may be one of these. What we've done is we've canceled all in-person meetings and are doing everything by web meeting. The only in-person meeting that we will have at this juncture is if we need to have somebody sign a will, and Jonathan's going to explain some of the issues with that. But we're not quite there yet with remote signatures. But we use these programs that Baron just mentioned, so a client can sign an engagement letter, a billing arrangement, retainer agreement before. I don't want to have a web meeting with a new client, and then what is my relationship? Am I retained? Am I not retained? They haven't signed an engagement letter. They can sign it electronically. It's as easy as Baron said. I feel much more confident getting on the phone with somebody. I won't get on the phone with somebody and have an introduction meeting without being retained, because then I don't know what our relationship is. Let's turn it over to Paul. GoToMeeting is part of the suite. We're using GoToWebinar for this program now. GoToMeeting, it comes with GoToWebinar. It's something that I've used for many, many years, incredibly successfully, and I've been a fan of GoToMeeting forever. Paul, why don't you explain the product and the category of products and how people can use it to work remotely and still interact with clients?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I want to stress and sort of underscore that this is sort of a trying time. Completely sympathize with all of you in sort of what you're trying to manage through. The good news is that in this type of situation, that my organization has had this type of remote work philosophy and our solutions and products as part of our DNA for the past 10 plus years. So please keep in mind that there are ways to do this. Yes, it requires a little bit of a shift in your mindset, as well as how you're articulating this to your clients, as well as other cross-functional partners, but certainly is all achievable if you use the right type of technology and can absorb some of these pieces. As a first disclaimer, I do want to say I was teasing Marty earlier, saying that a best practice is to always be on webcam for and video for these types of situations. And if you are seeing that my webcam is actually taking up too much of your screen, right below my picture and my video, you will see a hamburger menu slider, and you can click that and just slide that up to minimize me. Additionally, at the very top of the window or applet, you can see a webcam button, and you can change the direction of what's going on. Don't get distracted by playing with the tools too much at this point in time, but definitely know that those are all pieces that we've built in based on those 10 years of expertise. From an offering standpoint, I would encourage everybody to familiarize yourself with the breadth of offerings that we have at LogMeIn. LogMeIn is the parent company that has 3 different business units, but we all support the idea of powering the modern workforce. And so much of that is based around remote work and the acceleration that has had over the past 3, 4, 5 years, and certainly stamped with what's going on now in response to the global pandemic. As such, if you use the following URL string, just type in gotomeeting.com, you will see our web properties, and it will explain our core services and offerings. If you want to go a step further, if you type in gotomeeting.com/work-remote, there's a bevy of resources that we are enabling and making available free of service to impacted regions, as well as clients that are trying to get up and running for the first 90 days in response to what's happening here and across the globe. Our primary product.
Paul,
go ahead.
Let me interject for a second. So we've used GoToMeeting forever. It's a phenomenal product, and it's helped make my business what it is. We realized with the current coronavirus challenges that we're all facing, that one of our admins did not have a seat for GoToMyPC, and which is one of the suite of products. I emailed my rep. I got a personal phone call back within an hour or two in an email, and by the next day we had that admin set up. So if all the stuff Paul is describing and Baron talked about sounds phenomenal, you want it, you need it, but you don't have it, you can do this stuff now with not much cost, not much time, and be set up quickly, so that if you need to start working remotely and you're not there, they'll get you there really quick and really easy. Paul?
Absolutely, and immediately. And you'll see on our web properties that there's opportunities to take out free trials to help you get there and to be up and running immediately. While it's a different vertical, my wife is a K-12 teacher, and the schools here are completely locked down, as they are basically across the entire country. And I had her set up yesterday, and within minutes, legitimately minutes, she was up and running and scheduling various video conferencing and video meeting sessions, not only with her classroom, but because of how highly secure and private and privacy laws that we have and baked into our platform, she's able to do this from a parent-teacher conference standpoint as well. Slightly different, obviously a different use case for what you're all in, but you also want to really take that into consideration as you think through how am I going to conduct my business in a remote situation where I cannot be face-to-face. And because and this slide sort of captures it all, right? These are highly secure, highly private, and encrypted tools that help make your business run, but you can also say and feel from a peace of mind standpoint that it is fully secure and adheres to all the different privacy laws for over web traffic. Now, there's a couple of different tools. GoToMeeting is for video conferencing and really sort of encouraging the client face-to-face interactions that you would have in a face-to-face setting, but just virtually, like we're doing right now. Video like this is the best way to continue to read, obviously, nonverbals and sort of recreate that face-to-face situation. GoToMeeting is the primary vehicle and our flagship for that. GoToWebinar is for large-scale events where there's upwards of nearly 1,000 people on this. So we scale based on fit-for-purpose needs. As Marty mentioned earlier, GoToMyPC is a tool that allows for you to connect in a remote environment to a desktop PC and access all of your files, all of your everything that would be happening and occurring on that desktop machine in a remote location from a remote device. We are, as it says at the bottom, fully encrypted. You have nothing to worry about on that front. In addition to that, there's other privacy tools and feature sets that we bake into our products to make sure that you're more comfortable, and then you can unlock those as you go, depending on where your comfort level is and the situation that you're faced with the clients.
Let me give a quick summary, and then I'm going to have to move forward because we got to get to Jonathan. He's got some really important stuff to talk about with remote signing, and we have some other practice stuff. There's a lot of different products out there. I was thrilled to get somebody from LogMeIn, Paul, to talk today. We use GoToMeeting to have video conferencing with clients, and I'm going to just give you a few quick points in a minute about that. We use GoToMyPC to work remotely off our network. So if you're not fully cloud-based and you're not going to get there realistically immediately, although it should be a short-term goal of yours, you can use GoToMyPC to work in your as if you were in your office wherever you may be, say working from home. And we use GoToWebinar product for this program. Let me try to jump forward a little, and I apologize, Paul and Baron. I know you guys are brilliant. We could talk all day on this stuff, but I want to get to Jonathan. So just keep in mind security as you start to have people working from home. You don't want people working from home on their own personal laptops, saving work documents to laptops and things like that. It could be an utter disaster. That's why I like also GoToMyPC. Everything stays in your protected office environment. But you should try to secure the networks and everything else that people are working on if you can. And there's a lot more comments and information here. One of the things that I do on GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar as well, and I'm going to do it for this webinar, is I have everything transcribed. We use a online website. I think it's called Scribby. We used to use a different one, Temi. There's a whole bunch of them out there for pennies, for dollars, a few dollars. They'll transcribe this hour-plus webinar and send me back a transcription. We then email that to an outsourcing company. We found a company in Israel where it's all American expatriates, so they speak with the same intonations and same sort of, I forgot the terms for it, but they speak like we do, so that when they copy edit, it's done in a way that's really useful. And I find that very helpful because it's very inexpensive, it's very quick, and it can help us turn product around. If you're working from home and you put a recording on, you just click a button, just like we did for this webinar, on a web conference with a client, you can get it transcribed in minutes and email it and have back a draft of a memo to do with a client meeting. So there's incredible advantages to what this technology offers. No typing staff, difficult coordinating with your admin staff if you're working from home. Dragon is to me, I don't know what other products are out there. If we have more time, I'd have Baron comment. I don't like to spend the time to figure out a new product. I hired Baron. I think in 20 minutes, he had me up and running, dictating using Dragon. I have it on my laptop. I use it all the time. I don't know how I functioned without it. If you are feeling the pain, the difficulty of not having access to your admin staff, hire Baron, get Dragon, get it set up, and in incredibly short time, you'll be dictating a large amount of stuff that you even used to type or that used to have others in your staff type. It's incredibly powerful in terms of making you efficient and effective, and you don't need an office to do it.
And Marty, I want to jump in one thing before I totally sign off here. Within GoToMeeting, we allow for cloud recordings free of service as part of our product, and then free transcription services, which literally gets turned around to what you're just talking about in less than an hour. So we use a Google API to sort of do that, and it's part of GoToMeeting, so you can have one-stop shop for all those pieces. Keep that in mind as well.
And I'll be using that after this program instead of sending it out someplace else. I'm going to skip through some of this, but there's a lot of comments here on web conferencing. We have used it for years and years. We found it incredibly an efficient way to work. GoToMeeting. We review documents. It's the preferable way to review documents. It's much more time efficient. Clients love it. They can sit at home and go through it. This is the kind of tools, if you haven't been using, you should. And we'll go on. On slide 30, just a quick comment. So one of the things that we experienced, and I just had this today and a couple days ago while preparing this, a client is going to have a web meeting because I'm not going to do an in-person meeting now. It's inappropriate, I think, unless absolutely essential. And they wanted to send me documents, but they don't have a scanner because they're not in their office because I think they were self-quarantined, whatever. So DigiSet has an app, and there may be others, that was no cost, got it on my iPhone, and all you do is take a picture of any document, like a billing, an engagement letter, a retainer agreement, and it turns it into a PDF, and you can immediately send it someplace. You can even sign something in their app. So for no cost, if a client needs to get you an engagement letter or retainer agreement before you start doing a web-based meeting for a new client, they can shoot a picture of the billing engagement letter you sent them, sign it online, and email it to you. So there's lots of stuff with administration of the practice. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to skip through those. Slide 35. Many of us are going to have to think about finances. Clients are going to cancel meetings. Business is going to be slower. Corporate clients may not be paying. Some of our clients are going to have financial issues. The decline in the market is going to make clients hesitant to pay. We need to address our finances, our insurance coverage. What I'd like to do, because we've taken a lot of time, but I think this has been very valuable and hopefully practical for all of you. Jonathan, I'd like to turn it over to you and have you start to talk about what I think is one of the most pressing issues we're all facing now. If we shouldn't be meeting with clients because of the social distancing, if we can't meet with clients because, like I said, Bergen County, where my office is, has recommended that businesses closed by executive order, what can we do? What can we do, and what needs to be done in terms of remote signing of documents? Jonathan?
Well, Marty, that's an important issue for everyone. Fortunately, most documents in most jurisdictions can be signed separately. You don't need witnesses. I mean, we all know that traditionally there are witnesses to a will, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But if you're signing a trust, in most jurisdictions, you don't need witnesses or notarization. I think Florida may be a major exception where it has testamentary attributes. But you're going to face, say, a will execution, and either the client can't travel, or maybe your client is in a nursing home where they won't let anybody enter. What can you do? Well, some states have adopted the Uniform Electronic Will Act, and that basically provides that things can be signed remotely, at least in some circumstances. But that's a very, very small number of states. What about if you're not in one of those states? Can you go ahead and have the client sign the will? Well, there are two thoughts. One, and Marty, I'm going to ask you to show your pretty face again to show this, is you have the client print out the document on her home printer, or maybe you have it delivered. The mail is still being delivered, so you can have her will delivered by postal service, or maybe just delivered and shoved under a door or something. The client can take it out. Now, in most states, you're going to have a question about whether or not the witnessing has to involve physical presence. And there are a couple of doctrines here, line of sight and physical presence. Line of sight means that you actually have to see the person sign, as opposed to, say, being in the next room where you're kind of hearing things going on. The other one is physical presence. Well, today, what does physical presence mean? Does it mean you have to be in the same room? Or suppose, you go through something like Zoom or Skype and you watch the client actually sign. So I had a long chat with my dear friend Mitchell Gans last night, and Mitchell has some question about whether that works unless they've adopted the Uniform Electronics Will Act. I'm not so sure that's right. Mitchell isn't sure it's wrong, but it does raise at least a question. And before I get through the looking glass, Marty, why don't you show us how you're going to sign that will I sent you this morning?
So what I would suggest is you FedEx me a will. We have a web meeting which is being recorded just like this web conference. I open the package in front of you that came from you. I identify it. You ask me all the questions you would in a physical signing. After I initial or sign each page, I can hold that page up for just a second to the camera, initial the next page and hold it up. You have a perfect record of exactly what I've signed, and if there's ever an issue that I've signed the right thing or initialed the right thing, you have the video recording of everything that can be saved forever. And then I can take it while you're watching me and put it back in the FedEx envelope that you sent for me to return it and have it returned to you. And when you get it, the notarization and witnesses that you and others in your office signed while watching me and while we're communicating, all recorded, you interleaf into the will. And then you sign an additional affidavit saying that what the process was. You sent me a sealed FedEx. I opened it in front of you. It was all recorded. I signed it. I answered all the questions. I identified it. I acknowledged that it was my last will and testament and so on and so forth. And I wanted you to notarize it. I saw the witnesses when they were signing the counterparts, and we put it together no different than a trust. I don't see the risk to a testatrix in signing a document in that fashion. But the problem is right now, if you have somebody that is isolated, if you have somebody in a nursing home and they won't let anybody in, what do you do?
Well, I think, Marty, you do what you just said. You do it remotely. By the way, Marty, we have now lost your picture, and you show that
That was not perfect, Jonathan.
Okay, Marty, but you say, Doris, turn to page 26, sign it, and you and the other witnesses are looking, and she's looking at you, and do you say, Doris, do you declare this to be your last will and testament? And that's the three of us whom you see to act as witnesses. And if she says yes. Now keep in mind that unlike certain other things like a contract or a trust, everybody has to sign the actual same physical document. You can't have the testator sign one version of the will and then the witness sign another version of the will. That won't work. One of the things, if you're in doubt about it, is perhaps to consider a lifetime trust, basically a revocable trust, which the client would sign. And again, in most states, you don't even need a notarization for it, although in some states you do. But maybe what you do is where some sort of notarization or witnessing. New York, for example, requires some sort of basically notarization and or witnessing. You have a choice. But again, if you're trying to do it with Skype or Zoom, you may have a question. And maybe what you'll do is, your client will have a friend in a state like Alaska, have to have it notarized or witnessed, and that friend will be a co-trustee at least for a time. And therefore, you can use that state's law, which doesn't require it, and you can sign it separately. And as Marty said, you can actually record the signing by both the grantor and by the trustees. And so that's something that really can be done. Now, this is something else I've thought of it. I'm calling it through the looking glass. Let's say I have a client in a nursing home. I can't go in. She can't come out. But I go to her nursing home and I have the will delivered. She takes it out of the envelope and goes to a window. She's on one side of the window and I'm on the other side of the window. And maybe we are both on cell phones with our speakers on. And I talk to her about, again, Doris, go sign it. Do you declare that to the glass to be your last will and testament and act as? And she says, I do. Back to the door, puts it back in the envelope, and in the presence, at least in my view, of those things. Now, one of the things that this crisis has brought to our attention is we need for the law to catch up with the technology. Again, only a handful of states have adopted the Uniform Electronics Will Act. By the way, some states require, again, line of sight, some require physical presence. Good news for those of you who are in uniform probate code jurisdictions. Section 2-502 has removed the statement that it must be in the physical presence of the testator and the witnesses. Now, I can't discern what that means, but it indicates, since it was there before with physical presence and is no longer required, that maybe something like Skype or Zoom, or at least through the look. But again, I would suggest that you consider alternative means like a revocable trust. Certainly the client or the client's attorney, in fact, can make the transfers by telephone or by some sort of election there. So that's maybe the best thing to do if you have it and you need to get documents done.
Jonathan, do you want to comment on this, or should we just word that we need?
Well, again, this is just something that go ahead. New Jersey, tell us about this New Jersey. So let me add one other thing. There was a case in New York. A will was executed by a telephone from the witnesses, and the court held that that's not a good will. But
so there's a New Jersey case cited there, and the link is provided if you want to get the case, where an unexecuted will was admitted to probate. There was another case that relied on harmless error doctrine in New Jersey that held that a writing need not be signed by the testator in order to be admitted to probate. I think the key that we're talking about with the Florida thing that we skipped through quickly, Jonathan's comments, some of these cases, is that the law is slowly moving towards alternate means of execution, witnessing, and notarization of wills, and we need to get there faster because the coronavirus tragedy really makes the need for remote and electronic witnessing, notarization, signing, execution of wills and other documents absolutely critical for our safety and our client safety. The technology, as Jonathan said, is there. The law needs to catch up. And Vanessa Kanega of Interactive Legal kind of suggested that what we really need this to be is a call for action. We all need to, in all our respective states and jurisdictions, our appropriate legislators, and encourage them to get legislation enacted that will enable us to help clients. I believe there was something proposed in Massachusetts, an executive order may have been signed, Jonathan can comment when I'm done, suggesting that on a temporary basis this may be permitted. But what we really need is a more comprehensive treatment of this whole matter. And I'm confident, and I think if we have more time than just on the tech aspects, that the tech experts like Paul and Barron can virtually assure us that technology will permit this in a way that is comfortable for all of us, but we got to get the law there, especially now. And an emergency measure, if it's valid, would certainly be helpful. And I think critical to us helping a lot of clients. And I'm going to make sure before we stop, we're going to go on a little longer, as I said in the beginning. And if you can't stay on because of a meeting, the recording will be posted to Peak Trust website, Interactive's website, and shankmanlaw.com/webinars as well. But some of the changes, for example, to living wills and health proxies are critical to make for clients, and remote signing and notarization is important. Jonathan, you wanted to make any last comments on this before we go on?
Well, I was told by a colleague of ours this morning that the governor of Massachusetts has signed an executive order basically saying that you can execute documents remotely, even though it's not in the statute. I have some question about whether or not an executive order can overturn or amend a statute such as the statute of wills. But it all means that things need to change, and we need to change it soon. And Marty mentioning things like do not resuscitate order, living wills, medical powers of attorney, and powers of attorney are now critical for people to have. They have to have it because we need to manage their assets and do things, and medical decisions may be very, very important to have made on behalf of someone who becomes ill.
We're going to come to that. I'm going to skip through the next section. I'm going to skip some of the basics, and let's talk about that topic now. So everybody knows that's on this call what a DNR, living will, health proxy, HIPAA release are. We all draft these things for clients. We're all familiar with them. and we all know clients need to have them. So just a couple of comments. In the current environment, using something like ShareFile, and there may be others, I'm just not familiar with them, we've posted all the signed documents as PDFs into ShareFile. Clients can download them anywhere, anytime, and give anyone they want access to their portal for their private portal. And they can use an app on their phone, so if they're in a hospital, they can download their living will right from their smartphone and provide it to the medical provider. One of the things that I think would also be practical for us to tell clients, and this may be the kind of thing you put in a communication to clients to show them that you're trying to help them during this difficult time, print out a photocopy of your health-related documents. Just keep them in an envelope. If, God forbid, you get taken to a hospital, you have them right there in hard copy to hand somebody so that it'll speed the process. Those are a couple of things. Another thing, if a document is old, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, whatever rule of thumb you may use, more critically by somebody willing, whether they're willing to accept it, whether it's still valid, whether it's what you really wanted, it certainly pays to get documents